Welcome to the Marketing Stir podcast by Stirista, probably the most entertaining marketing podcast you're going to put in your ears. I'm Jared Walls, associate producer and Stirista's creative copy manager. The goal of this podcast is to chat with industry leaders to get their take on the current challenges of the market, but also have a little fun along the way. In this episode, Vincent and Ajay talk to Sasha Mircov, Vice President of Operations at AdColony. He explores rewarded video, privacy, and other elements of the future of mobile marketing. He also explains the nuances of being a gamer. Ajay has his hands full, and Vincent is curious about Flag Day. Give it a listen.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's another episode of Stirista's The Marketing Stir. I, of course, am your crazy host, Vincent Pietrafesa, the Vice President of B2B Products and Partnerships here at Stirista. Stirista, I've never heard of them. Yeah, you have. We are an identity marketing company. We have our own B2B data, our own B2C data. With that data, we help companies take in their first-party data, enhance it, enrich it, model it. Let's get you some new customers. Who can't use those right now, right? Email marketing, display, OTT, CTV. We have our own DSP, Adster. Check it out. Email me, Vincent@Stirista.com. I always say it. That's how confident I am in our service. I just gave you my email address. I'm sure I'm going to get 9,800 emails from you. So thank you. Happy to be here with me as always, which even makes me even happier. My CEO, my commander-in-chief here at Stirista, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ajay Gupta. What's going on, Ajay?
Hey, Vincent, just trying to keep it together today. Both the kids are at the house, and I don't know what happened, but the daycare apparently was off today. So we have our hands full, but pandemic realities, right?
I hear you. I know those daycare centers. I feel like even my son's school, they just get like random holidays off or random days off. I'm like, who gets Flag Day off? What does that even mean? Who gets Flag Day off? But apparently, my son's school does. Shout out to Tribeca Community School. Give me a discount. You guys are really expensive. Anyway, but it's, a great way to keep our spirits up, surrounding ourselves with guests, amazing guests. We always have great guests here on the Marketing Stir. Thank you for listening out there, ladies and gentlemen. I would love to welcome in my next guest. I hope he's not too tired because he is a new dad for the second time, and we really appreciate him spending some time with us. The Vice President of Operations from AdColony, ladies and gentlemen, Sasha Mircov. What's going on, Sasha?
Hi, Vince. It's good to be here.
Did I get it right? I got the last name right?
Thank you. Yes, you did.
I pride myself on that because Pietrafesa is a doozy. My two sons are going to have some trouble with that. I just learned how to spell it about 3 years ago. AJ just learned the proper, way to say my last name a couple days ago. Took him, but it happens. It's a long last name. Sasha, thank you so much for being here. First off, congratulations on your little girl. That's amazing. And, thank you for spending some time with us. How's it been? How's your last 5 weeks been?
Oh my God. Well, let me tell you, today I feel great. Yesterday was horrible. The day before yesterday, I feel great again. So it's ups and downs.
I hear you. I know.
But it's overall, I mean, we're very happy. We love the little one. So.
Of course, I know. As people know, maybe on the podcast, I have a 6-month-old, and he's an adorable little angel during the day. At night, he turns into the devil, a demon seed, because he's not the best sleeper. I'm actually sleeping out in my living room. My wife and I are sleeping out there. It's not because she kicked me out of the room and I'm sleeping on the couch. It's just because I'm in the room. New York City. Yay. Sasha, please, for the audience there, tell people what, and who AdColony is.
Sure. So AdColony is the best way to explain it. It's a mobile video network. We are a technology platform that services developers and brands on one side, and for their user acquisition and brand and awareness needs. And as a sort of media space, we have some 15,000 applications and mobile websites. So it's a two-sided market, demand on one side and supply on the other. And we are a technology stack in between.
And tell us about your role specifically there. I believe you are our first guest within the operations space. So tell us about, what you do there as the VP of operations.
Sure. So I think operations are a little bit, when it comes to advertising technology in general, operations, we could always put and say advertising operations in addition to the operations part of the title. And in our case, what it means, and it's a little bit different than other ad tech companies, the team and I handle everything after the sales finishes their work. So sales sell, they bring advertisers over, they sign contracts, and the moment the sales are finished, they're handing over those clients to my team. That means account management, client services, but also narrowly defined operations, meaning loading everything up, running campaigns, campaign management, etc., as well as managing our publishers. So pretty much almost everything but the sales process, right? So that's what the team and I are doing.
And Sasha, how did you get into this marketing ad tech space to begin with?
That's a good question. I am originally from Serbia. I came to San Francisco to do my MBA back in 2002. And after I finished, I was actually on my last leg. I was working on my thesis, and I audited a class where it was a speaker who was working for a digital advertising agency at the time. I was thinking of going into market research, but then I got introduced to this new thing of digital sort of advertising, and I started working for them. So for a long time, I was in an advertising agency sort of space, but very quickly I realized the agencies don't scale. And the agencies are far removed from a good technology. So I decided to go into ad tech, and very quickly from focusing on desktop, I refocused on mobile. So I started with AdColony under a different name. There's been a lot of acquisitions and mergers since. I started with this company 7+ years ago. So very relatively early when the smartphones are kind of taking off. So and then from a customer service, I went into operations. That's pretty much it.
So looks like you've been in the industry for quite a while now. So you've
Yes.
seen the ups and downs. What do you think is kind of the latest trend in the industry, or what are some of the things that you see happening today that are new and exciting?
Oh, well, what's really happening today is the opposite of new and exciting. I think that's perhaps the most important hallmark of advertising technology sort of today. It's consolidation, right? We're having companies in the market consolidating left and right. We have the dominance of the big technology companies. They're sucking up most of digital advertising dollars. So it's actually, it's a tricky thing to find something new and exciting. If you look at where the venture capital is going these days, it's not ad tech companies, it's everything but, right? But one thing that excites me, and this is what I think is the next frontier, it's audio ads. Podcasts is a new sort of medium. That's why this is very exciting to be in one and to talk to you guys about it. I think we've been competing for eyeballs for so long. Screens are everywhere. Our first, second, third screen, etc. Right? Your visual processing sort of part of brain consumes some 30% of your information processing capacity. If in comparison to your audio, sort of that takes maybe 3. So I think the audio part is untapped when it comes to our attention. I'm a big avid user of audiobooks. I burn through a book every couple of days. It kind of it's tremendously rewarding. I listen to podcasts, and I think more and more people are kind of doing the same. You can walk, you can drive, you can do other things as you kind of consume content. And it's undeveloped or underdeveloped. The whole sort of audio ad market is underdeveloped. It's hard to transact them programmatically. There's measurement issues. There's standardization issues. So I really think that the next big, maybe not as big as what happened to the smartphones, right? But the next sort of interesting frontier is going to be audio ads, and maybe down the line some augmented reality and virtual reality. But that's far down the road.
And Sasha, you actually just kind of nice segue into what I wanted to ask you, you being in the mobile advertising technology industry, what is the situation you've been hearing about the iOS 14 and its changes?
Right. Oof, that's a big one. So Apple is Apple's big strategic bet for the future is privacy, right? And the way the mobile marketing works today, Apple, of course, Android as well, have this piece of code. It's called advertising ID or IDFA, and it's basically this number that applications can access. It's almost like a cookie. I'm kind of going really broad, just assuming that the audience may not know what it is. It's almost like a cookie in a desktop, right? So you grab this information, you can read it, and based on that, you identify a user. You can retarget. You can do everything that you would do with the cookie, right? And it's a hallmark of user acquisition for mobile space. It's necessary for a company. If you're a game and you're acquiring users, you're running your marketing, you want to know your ROS, you return on your ads, your backend metrics, etc. You need to know where you got that user, how much money you spent to get them, and what they're doing within the app, right? And for all that, you need to have some kind of a unique identifier. That's this IDFA. Well, right now you can say, I don't want to be tracked, but in order to do that, you got to walk into the app, into the settings. It's buried way deep. With the iOS 14, they're bringing it way up to the front. Basically, once you update your phones, and this iOS 14 is out right now, if I'm not mistaken, but this particular feature has been postponed to next year. And what it does is, once you have that feature, once that update is, once your phone is updated with that specific update, you open any app that you open, it will prompt you with the question, do you want to be tracked or not? And predictions are that some 80% of the people will say no, I don't want to be tracked. If you say no, IDFA is 0 out, and the entire, the entire segments of the industry are now scrambling to find a way to what happens then. What do I do? How do I target? How do I retarget? How do I suppress? How do I track my user? What did they do? And so it's a big sort of change. So that's the broad one. There's one more narrow one for those who are in mobile advertising space. They're going to appreciate this. Apple is shaping the structure of the industry by now segmenting the entire industry into 3 tiers: publishers, the end, sort of the content creator, right? In a way, not content creator, but the place where the content is being served, right? The media that's creating the media space that's now being sold. The network, the advertising network, which is in this case us, and Apple App Store. That's it, or the new sort of SCAD network. as they call it. So those three sort of segments are the only, so those three types of companies are the only one who are going to be getting signals from Apple when a download happens, right? Right now you have the entire industry built around mobile measurement, sort of mobile measurements. We have a number of companies that are dominating the space. There are, AppsFlyers, Kachavas, those who are in the space will know those names. Apple is changing that. They're saying, no, you're not going to be the arbiter of truth. We're taking that role, and then we let these two types of companies, the networks and the publisher, know that what is the truth. So the entire industry now needs to rethink, like, how do we communicate? Like, now they're putting us in a place where we now have to kind of redistribute that information, and it's really turning everything upside down. And it's not far. I'm not exaggerating when I say we really don't know. Yeah. We know how to do it, but we don't know what it means once it's happened. We're retooling everything, but once this goes live, and that's the reason they postponed this update, because once it goes live, it's going to be a mess.
Yeah, I know. It seems like, between that and between the cookies going away, it seems like there's really, limitations on what advertising organizations and marketing technology companies will start being able to do, right? So it's I know it's crazy. I want to stay on kind of the video side, because you're a very unique guest for us here in that area. I wanted to talk and ask you some questions about rewarded video advertising.
Sure.
And talk a little bit about that, what that is, and also maybe some of the taboos surrounding it.
Absolutely. So rewarded video, which is one of our sort of most popular products, it's a very simple mechanics. It's basically an advertiser's video that is shown to a user as they are progressing through the app, accessing content, playing a game. And it's a transaction where we say, look, you have reached a point where you either want some additional content that's behind the wall, or you want to move on with your game, or you lost a life, and we will replenish that. But in return, watch our advertisers video from start to finish, right? And it's a very simple mechanics. It's a microtransaction that happens between us, advertiser, the game, and the gamer, or the user. And it's tremendously successful in promoting certain sort of types of content. So, for example, if you advertise a game to gamer, it's a no-brainer. It's an attentive audience. They're already playing a game. We know what they like. Here's another game. We would never incentivize anyone to actually go and download the game. They're only, again, micro-incentivized to kind of just sit with that video. And that has been working great for user acquisition from the day one. And there was never any taboos, right? Because developers, especially they're mobile only or mobile first, their business is their app. And they have very, very strict metrics of whether they're making money off of the users they're generating from us or not, right? And if they are, they're spending more. And if they're not, they're moving away. So you're either succeeding or you're not, based on real results in the back end. The taboo is with the brands and advertisers who have brand and awareness type of needs, right? And the taboo goes like this: well, I don't want to pay someone to watch my video. That's kind of it rings counterintuitive. It's almost like, anyone would watch video for money, quote unquote, right? But that's really not the case. It's not the case, and we have a lot of research on our website to show that's not the case. Because what's happening here, we are a brand is assisting a user in accessing content, in moving on with their game, by asking them to spend 6 seconds or so watching high quality content, high quality ads. We make sure that is always as good as they get. And what we are actually finding is that users have a good opinion of the brands that come along, even though sometimes it might look as an interruption, but they kind of push them forward in their use of the application. So our biggest sort of push right now, as far as our own advertising and PR goes, is to kind of educate the brands basically around this, the positive impact such rewarded video has on their potential customers.
Sasha, I'm sure you're familiar with companies like LiveRamp that do first-party onboarding,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So with the kind of going back to the iOS changes, how do you think companies are going to be able to get their data uploaded for targeting, whether it's video or other platforms?
Oof. That's, I don't know, $10 billion question. Well, and I again, every other change that happened so far, we were, while I was, with, for example, AdColony, we would have very good sort of opinion. And in this particular case, we, not only that it's very hard to form an opinion, it's also, we're very cautious not to disseminate opinions. They're contrary to what actually happens for a number of reasons. But if I'm to kind of look at the crystal ball and project what's going to happen when this change is in effect, for a while it's going to be business as usual, and a lot of companies that we are talking to are actually betting on business as usual continuing for some time, right? The opt-in rates may not be as high as we were predicting, right? Or I'm sorry, opt-out rates, opt-out from. There's going to be a lot of legacy information that can be used, and even if the IDFAs are out, companies, the data providing companies will piece data points together. It's going to be more of a fingerprinting than in probabilistic matching, rather than using a single piece of information and deterministic sort of matching. So it's in a way, the best way to put it is that I think that the industry will kind of regress a little bit. They will go back to the old days of, well, we have the IP and we have the device agent, we have all these other pieces that we can use that which makes it still relevant. That's going to work for some time, for sure. At least in the beginning, and maybe past the some more past the, because adoption rate of any sort of iOS update or OS update kind of follows a certain curve. It starts high and kind of plateaus, but at some point everyone's on it, right? So up until that point, some of that sort of business as usual will be okay. Fingerprinting might work for some companies, for time after that. The problem with fingerprinting, and this is the big unknown, the way Apple is phrasing all these questions now is it kind of leaves them room to treat. So, for example, they're going to say, "Well, do you want to be tracked?" I'm paraphrasing the prompts right now, but just for the sake of illustration, they can say, "Do you want to be tracked by this app?" Instead of, do you want this app to use your IDFA? That's two very different sort of questions. And if they go with the first one, and you say no, Apple has full right to come back at you and say, "Hey, you can't fingerprint. There's no tracking whatsoever, right? Period. They just told you so, right? It doesn't matter that we're zeroing out IDFA and all that stuff. That's just a subset of your tracking capabilities, but the user said no completely, right? So, and so that those are bad news, right? They're not bad news. There's two ways of things might kind of proceed after this update. They may not be feasible for a long run. One positive change that we might expect is that the creative will become important again. Those of us in a digital space have known for a long time that creative really matters less than how you use media. Like, is your algorithm good? Right? Do you have the right audience? Like that mattered much more from the early days, especially now, rather than am I showing them the right message, really, really the right message? And I think that's going to change. I think tailoring good, excited ads, creative ads, enticing ads, like thinking creatively in that department will become important again, rather than just doing your data science.
And Sasha, do you have any strong feelings on the IP address as a replacement?
IP, I think it's going to remain available. It's tricky, right? Especially in a mobile space, because if you're on a cellular sort of network, you're sharing IPs with who. That's not my forte, so I might say something that's incorrect. But there's going to be you're going to be connected to a particular sort of network at the point, and there's going to be a shared IP. So a lot of us living in the same vicinity will have the same IP and whatnot. But I think for foreseeable future, any piece of information that's available will become that much more important, right? And how you use it, how you pair it, what statistical sort of methods we put in place to determine is that really that person is going to be that much more important.
And Sasha, what we talk about a lot on the Marketing Stir is really getting into the nitty-gritty on some marketing objectives, right? And marketing initiatives and techniques that you're using. Can you share with us and the listeners some marketing initiatives that AdColony uses that really helps? And also to that, some of your tech stack, maybe some of the vendors that you work with that really help you out, just to let the people out there know what's working.
Okay, so just to kind of go back to the first question, what AdColony does as far as marketing to kind of how do we put our message out there, right? Mm-hmm. Is that the first part of the question?
Yes.
Okay. We are a B2B company, right? Our clients are businesses, and they're this part of the industry that has been consolidated for a while now. I'm talking about advertising agencies, their media sort of buying arms. So we more or less know all our customers. What we don't, so when we do marketing, who we communicate to are not the media buyers and planners, right? That we also sell to, but we're trying to kind of go a couple of steps beyond that and talk to the brand executives. And that's why it's important for us to talk about the reward video and all that kind of stuff, because ultimately we were trying to change their minds. To do that, there's two things. I mean, it really, I would say, I'm not in a marketing department, but we are all part of this effort to kind of put the content out there. And I can tell you that content, us producing content, us doing the research, figuring things out, is absolutely number one thing. That really what our target audience matters. And the second thing is the channel that we use to kind of disseminate, and it's really LinkedIn. It's kind of, things have gotten down to like two very simple steps. Third thing that used to be very sort of popular for us is participating in various competitions of sorts, and reward sort of ceremonies, right? A little bit, self-serving if you ask me, but nevertheless kind of gets the message out there, at least among the, within the industry. But it's really producing quality content and then reaching this audience on platforms where we're certain that they're actually seeing it, which is LinkedIn.
And were you doing a lot in, webinars? You said content, but were you producing webinars? Were you going to trade shows in the past? Was that a big piece of your business? And if it was, what are some of the plans moving forward?
Good. So we haven't done webinars until recently. I think this whole pandemic and an ability to be at the trade show kind of prompted us to start doing webinars, and we did a few just recently on this topic of iOS 14. But that doesn't mean that we were very busy going to trade shows. We did have people going to trade shows, but we were not necessarily participating by having a booth Sponsorships were something that we were doing, if it's an industry specific, right? But nevertheless, the pandemic kicks in and everybody's now on Zoom, and we're now, hey, okay, well, and I'll tell you something. I've been going to trade shows before and after pandemic, and of course after it's all online. And I got to tell you, I'm much more comfortable. Not just comfortable. I think I get a lot more done by going to an online trade show and then methodically just texting people that they're there by reading what they're about and being like, hey, do you want to have 15-minute conversation? And then doing some scheduling. Then in the past, trying to do this all sort of in person, and then you don't know, where are we supposed to have drinks? Or if I schedule 15 minutes and leave after 15 minutes, will the person get, I think it's a little bit more effective. So I think we're kind of, we're thinking about doing this, the in-person stuff a little bit more, in-person, quote unquote, on Zoom.
Yeah, we do a lot of that where like I always have my camera on any call that I have just to still feel that connection with people. We were big conference people setting up meetings, but also me being in New York City and you the same in San Francisco. It's so easy to have just, go to someone's office and meet with them. But we find that we're getting along fine with the virtual, but
yes. My sales team, however, I got to tell you, my sales team is they were devastated when this pandemic kicked in. They did not know what to do. And I have a feeling they're still figuring things out. So for the type of business that needs to be sold in person, this is a problem. However, pushing out the messagings that needs to change people's minds, that doesn't require sort of direct selling. I think we're doing okay.
Got it. Over to you, AJ.
I lost track of the questions here. So, Sasha, this is kind of a staple question we ask all of our podcast guests, and it's a one that I think we haven't missed any. So what we like to ask is, I'm sure you get a lot of LinkedIn messages, and what is a LinkedIn message that really gets your attention? And then what's one that's like a pet peeve that you really can't stand?
All right, this is very good. It kind of ties to what we just talked about. So, my messaging part of my LinkedIn account has exploded. I'm sure everybody's feeling the same thing. There's people are reaching out. I got to say, I really hope my sales folks don't do that the way most people do. So, in my opinion, I think what used to be sort of I would get excited to get a message on LinkedIn because somebody wanted to talk to me that I'm not talking to already. It was always meaningful. That's a change. That's changed definitely. I'm getting very, very loosely targeted emails, auto-generated content, all kind of stuff, and I fear that the messaging part becomes something that I'm avoiding. I've used to go in and I would say no. People would offer me something that I'm not interested in, and I would actually take time to say no, thank you, I'm not interested, and I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not even friending, whatever, accepting connections, just letting things kind of sit there unanswered. So I have not encountered a good message, to be completely honest. Of course, a few were very sort of to the point where they've researched what we're doing and they made it relevant. I've passed it on, and so its relevance is really, and it's going to be becoming more important now that the space is getting cluttered. So that's unfortunately not a lot of good examples to share, but at least personally, right? I haven't encountered much, but I do have something else that I wanted to mention when it comes to LinkedIn. I think it's still crucial sort of tool for B2B communication, period. And this messaging becomes cluttered, and until LinkedIn builds a tool that's going to allow you to kind of filter and kind of make it more, because there's a potential to connect through messaging, right? I don't think that the way they're doing it right now, it's very difficult to like block a user. It's like you can mute someone. It's like tools needs to be built around it, right? Until that happens, I think getting a message to your, not only getting a message out to your prospective clients, but receiving good messages as someone who so me as a sort of like a target, I realized that it became important for me to keep my feed clean, right? To unfollow those who are. So it's almost like, I think making your content relevant, content that you're posting on LinkedIn, is important, but it's also important for us on the other side, the receivers of the message, to do our job in cleaning our feed and making sure that the good messages are not, because let me tell you something, there's one channel that I'm particularly excited about and have been for a while, newsletters. So if I go to a company's website and they offer me to sign up to get more information about a company, the companies are doing a great job of either producing relevant sort of newsletter content on an ongoing basis, or just simply letting me know when something new happened. And I spend a good amount of time reading through my inbox, including commercial messaging, because if I went there and I sign up, I am interested. So as long as they're not barraging me with unbearable amount, if they're doing it in a way, like I really, email is become, in my opinion, it kind of came back, right? It's a renaissance of email marketing. Now LinkedIn is now going through this slump where they need to figure things out, how they're going to come up on top, right? So cleaning your feed on LinkedIn would be definitely one thing to do. And then a pet peeve, I got to say this, that nothing against the guy, but there's this businessman out there, Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the gentleman, and apparently he's a very successful businessman. He's a very successful media personality. He has a lot of stuff out there. He has a lot of followers. But frankly, he has a very particular style. He's very excited and always a little bit overexcited, in my opinion. And that paired with the stuff that he's talking about, which is mostly like a marketing business 101, I always thought it was kind of like, well, so much excitement about such a basic advice, a little bit off. And then at some point it exploded, right? It was all over my feed. And I realized, instead of just looking at what he's talking about, I started looking like, who's liking this? And then I kind of started unfollowing the people who were liking Mr. Gary, and it helped me clean up my feed. So that's not an advice. You asked me about my pet peeve, and that's one. And again, no one's fault. Gary, he calls himself Gary V. He might be a great person and a great businessman, and the information that he's sharing may be very relevant to some. It was not to me. And using him to kind of filter out to moderate my feed, actually. So I is an opportunity to say thank you to him and his.
That's great, Sasha. I have similar feelings about Gary V's video, but I have not weeded people out. But that is great.
Yeah. That's the first I've heard. I've heard there's other individuals that if you follow, that's how they weed out. But that's not more in the business world. That's enough.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's another. That's and that could be left to the imagination, whoever that would be.
Well, I think I saw Sasha's profile photo is the Biden Harris picture, so I think we can be more forthcoming here. So
I have to say, it's very. I don't see that a lot on LinkedIn, and I debated with myself whether to put it out there. I think today perhaps more important than in any previous election is to be forthcoming and try to encourage people to actually go out and vote. And again, go out and vote for anyone, but just do it. It's important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have listeners of all political views here on the Marketing Stir. But so yeah,
That's what's great about this country, pluralism.
Exactly. But Sasha, I want to get back to gamers. It's an interesting topic. Are mobile gamers who we think they are, or is it a different demographic altogether? Now, I think teenagers or kids in or adults in their parents' basement kind of playing, these games. Dispel some of that for me.
Sure, absolutely. So you're not, that's not an incorrect sort of a portray of a gamer, but there's a term in the industry, it's called a hardcore gamer, right? Hardcore gamers are usually skewing male and younger, right? I don't know about the basements. We don't ask that question.
Do you live in your mother's basement?
So yes, hardcore gamers perhaps, but even that sort of portrait of a gamer is inaccurate because it's much more gender balanced than what we think, and much less skewing so young as we think. But what's important about the mobile gamers is that they come in all shapes and sizes, and actually the dominant kind of mobile gaming right now is called casual. It's an industry term, right? And hyper casual. It's similar, but they know to different types of games, but in short sort of terms, it's it's not gaming is not so much a part of your identity. It's something that you do when you're on a transit, sitting on a toilet, whatever, right? There's multiple places where you there's that demographic is actually skewing female and skewing older, 35 plus, 40 plus, right? So basically very different than the what you described, right? This typical archetypical sort of gamer we're talking about, and very diverse in terms of their interest, very diverse in terms of their education, diverse in terms of their income. It covers a lot of ground. A lot of people are gaming, and even more so today as they're stuck in their homes than before. So it's really it's an opportunity when we talk to our brands and our clients. It's really an opportunity to reach a lot of it's a mistake to exclude gamer based on these inaccurate sort of ideas that we have, right? They're really diverse audience and very engaged with their brands. Yeah.
And speaking of gaming, are you into gaming? I know you're into reading, listening to books, as am I. What are some of your interests?
No, I'm not into gaming.
Neither am I.
I used to be when I was younger. I was a big fan of role playing games and strategies back in the day. Counter-Strike. It's interesting. It's been around for almost 20 years now, and I remember, and it didn't change much. So I'm a big sort of Counter-Strike fan, and was a big Counter-Strike player back in the day. But I think games are not the good ones. Require time, which I have less of lately, and the ones that don't require time are bad. That's my honest opinion, and kind of my boss will probably tell me why are you pooping on your supply, but they're getting standardized. It's the same topic, just differently kind of wrapped up. So it's a really a great thing when you have a game like Fortnite that comes along, changes the universe completely, or creates a universe, changes the gaming completely, etc. Right? So it's a busy market, and there's a lot of copycats of copycats of copycats. Not my cup of tea, but a lot of people do enjoy it.
So Sasha, you've been at AdColony 3+ years now. What's been kind of the highlight for you that you personally felt really good about?
Well, I think it was the space itself. The business was challenging for the last 3 or so years, right? I was there. I started in that sort of industry early when things are kind of going up and up, and then the consolidation is happening, and kind of things are kind of plateauing out in terms of growth and developments and product development, that kind of stuff. So one thing that there's one thing that's, I think, happening right now that's very dear to me. It's connected to, of course, my work at AdColony. And it's this whole sort of concept of basically doing things ethically. I think ethics is back in vogue, right? If you look at the use of term ethics in AI, artificial intelligence, which is a buzzword to some degree, but nevertheless the combination of those two search terms is kind of going through the roof, right? Proliferation of various AI tools and whatnot is something to do with it, but also I think as a society we're finally realizing, well, we have all this great technology that can do amazing things, but which things are truly the ones that we should be doing, right? So it's not whether we can do it, but should we do it? And I think this whole sort of a change of heart when it comes to social media. We hail it as the big democratization sort of tool. It's going to help the world come together. And now we're realizing, well, it's actually helping the world come apart. I think looking at, thinking about various sort of aspects of doing business ethically is what was exciting about the last couple of years, right? We have diversity and inclusion committee within AdColony that I was a part of, sort of part of the group that kind of pushed for it. We're looking at our operations and the way we deal with our suppliers and our customers in a different way. I think we're it's kind of we're doing things. We're trying to do things. Trying to be fair and fairer, better and better, more transparent, not less, right? Digital advertising space is known to be very opaque. There's a lot of stuff happening in the background that's improper. Fraud is rampant. I mean, no platform is immune to it, but we've been taking aggressive steps to try to figure it out, rectify when it happens, that kind of stuff. There's plenty of room to be done operationally. There's plenty of room to be done culturally. I remember when I started in the industry, the mantra was, hey, we're up and up. If we don't do it, someone else will do it. And it was in reference to some kind of a shady thing, whether you're gonna, BS your client or you're not going, it's always ways of doing things less ethically and more ethically when it comes to digital advertising, right? Because we're selling bits and pixels. There's a lot of way to kind of do that improperly. And I think the entire sort of atmosphere, the culture, everything is kind of changing towards like looking in this things in more depth, which is great. I think it's funny now when you look at like what's the most desirable, potentially like higher chances to get employed in the future more easily if you have a degree in moral philosophy, which is kind of crazy. That's probably the last thing to advise someone to go and study. And now it's Stanford and MIT have invested billions in institutes. They're specifically built to kind of bridge computer science and moral philosophy. So it's kind of like being a fan of philosophy and enjoying reading and all that kind of stuff. It kind of it works for me. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot about philosophy on the podcast recently. We've had some people who started out and studied philosophy many years ago, and that's what led them to marketing. So it's kind of weird to hear that, that's kind of now a more immediate path of people going back to doing philosophy and studying it. But those are some great final thoughts, Sasha. This has been great. The time flew by. Did you have a good time?
I did. Thank you, guys. It was great talking to you.
It's great talking to you. Great meeting you. And thank you for sharing your time with our listeners and your wisdom. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been Sasha Mircov of AdColony, the Vice President of Operations. I have been Vincent Petrofessa. He's Ajay Gupta. This has been another episode of The Marketing Stir. Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, email us. Tell us what you think. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you and talk soon.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Stir podcast by Stirista. Please like, rate, and subscribe. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, email us at themarketingstir@stirista.com. And thanks for listening.